Well, today, as I was preparing and thinking about today's message and thinking about graduates and seniors and moving on to the next chapter of life, one verse just kept on coming over and over again. And I thought there was something very simple. It just made so much sense to focus on. And so before we get there, I want to start with this question. Do you guys remember what it was like to be a graduate from high school? Do you guys remember that day? I mean, it was kind of a big moment because you're starting to get this taste of freedom, right? Freedom from high school, freedom from your parents' childish rules, moving out, experiencing freedom that way, just moving away from mom and dad, right? That was a huge moment. We all felt like rebels without a cause with nothing but a bright future, right? I can still remember my high school graduation. Now, my class just celebrated the 10-year reunion, which, I know, Matt, you're so old. I'm not trying to make that statement for that reason. I don't feel old, nor am I trying to imply I am. But it's just crazy because I can remember it like yesterday, walking through the back hallways of the TD Waterhouse Center, affectionately remembered by me as the Orlando Arena, and walking on stage, shaking the hand of our principal, grabbing the fake diploma, and then leaving. And here's what I know. I know for many of you, it's just slightly longer than 10 years. But you remember that day like it was yesterday. Time flies. And that's the thought that I just came to. And it's something that I didn't want to believe at first, because my mom would tell me, Matt, time flies. My grandparents would tell me all the time, Matt, time flies. And then I would have several adults throughout my childhood say, time flies, you better enjoy it while I can, because pretty soon you're going to get old like us. And my thought was, that is not going to happen. But then something crazy occurred. An event changed my world. I had kids. And it was then I realized, time flies. Because seriously, and maybe you've had this similar experience, I will put my kids, I have one son and a daughter, and I would put them to bed, and I swear that next morning they grew a foot. Their pajama pants turned into pajama capris. And I'm just thinking, what is going on? Time is going by so fast. Kids grow up so quickly, and they grow up so quickly because time passes so quickly. Time flies. It's like the great hymn writer Steve Miller wrote. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. And here's the thing about time, is that once it's gone, it's gone. You can't buy more of it. You can't recycle it. You can't reclaim it. It's like the theologian A.W. Tozer says, time is a resource that is non-renewable and non-transferable. You cannot store it, slow it up, hold it up, divide it up, or give it up. You can't hoard it up or save it for a rainy day. When it's lost, it's unrecoverable. When you kill time, remember that it has no resurrection. Time is important. Our time is important. And that's true for all of us. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter that you're rich or that you're poor. It doesn't matter your background. It doesn't matter what job you have. It doesn't matter that you're in this room today and you're a Christian, a non-Christian, or somewhere in between. The truth is, for all of us this morning, our time is valuable, and once it's gone, it's gone. It does not come back. And so as I was preparing for this morning, the one verse that kept coming over and over and over again was Psalm 90:12. Now, Psalm 90 was written by Moses, making it possibly the oldest psalm in the Bible. And it was written by Moses during the time that Israel was in all its decades of wandering through the wilderness. And so really, they were doing not much of anything. They were just kind of moving from place to place. Their target was the promised land, but all they kind of did was kind of circle, never really landing anywhere. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever felt like all you did was just kind of move in circles? Kind of stuck on the treadmill of life, you're running and going, but never really getting anywhere? Or that you've got so many different things going on, you don't know where to start or where to end? You ever feel like that you've done a lot of something but didn't really accomplish anything? Pastor John's not here. My boss is gone, so I can be honest with you. There have been several days at work where I have done a lot of stuff, but I didn't feel like I accomplished anything. There was a sense of just wandering. And what is it that we all say every time that happens? That was such a waste of, say it with me, time. And so as Israel is in their wandering, seemingly wasting time, look what Moses wrote in Psalm 90, verse 12. Teach us to number our days aright, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Moses tells us to count the days we have left. And he says that if we do, we will gain a heart of wisdom. So as I was reading that, I'm thinking, why would I need to be teaching about this? Because it's kind of morbid, isn't it? Because no one wants to think about how you're going to die or when you're going to die. And the reality is no one actually knows how or when our days are going to end. But that's exactly what Moses is asking us to do. But here's the point. When we count our days, we make our days count. Moses says that when we're aware of how much time we have left, we gain wisdom that will help us live lives that matter, that have meaning, that make a difference. And honestly, I think all of us would want in on that. I think we all want to live lives that count. I think all of us would love to be at the end of our life overlooking our past and think, man, I lived for something. I did something that mattered. I left a legacy. And Moses says that the key to living that kind of life is to count the time you have left, to keep in mind that life is short, to live with the end in mind. And when we do that, he says we will gain wisdom and insight on how to spend our days, which it's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, if you think about it, all of us would say, yeah, that's true. Because only a fool would live with no kind of planning. Now, listen, I'm not the greatest time management person. I'm not even the most organized person, but I have some kind of structure. I have some kind of plan of where I want to be. And I think we'd all agree that only a fool would live recklessly without thinking about their future. It's like the old preacher John Calvin said, "What can be a greater proof of madness than to ramble about without proposing to oneself any end? Living carelessly without any thought of the end is foolish." And while it may seem morbid, it's good to number our days and keep in mind how many of them we have left. It's good to be conscious of how short life can be. Because when we do that, we gain perspective that we would not otherwise have. We keep in mind what's important and then are able to weed out the different things that are not. One of the things about me is that I'm a visual learner, and that's why every time I teach, I try to have some kind of prop or illustration or visual, because it's not enough for you just to tell me that. I need to see it. You can't just explain how to do something. I need to see how to do it. And so as I was preparing and really thinking through this message, I came across an illustration that just kind of blew my mind. Honestly, I felt like I got hit by a freight train. And so I'm going to be honest with you. My goal is to make you all leave here feeling like you got hit by a freight train. It's probably the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard a pastor say. But that's my intention. And so when I read what I'm about to share with you, it really was. It just kind of, everything just clicked. And so here's what it was. In his book, The 17 Essential Qualities of a Team Player, leadership guru John Maxwell tells a story of an older gentleman giving some advice, some perspective to a younger man. And this is what he says. "It's a shame you have to be away from home and your family so much," he said. "Let me tell you something that has helped me keep a good perspective on my own priorities. You see, one day I sat down and did a little arithmetic. The average person lives 75 years. So I multiplied 75 times 52 and came up with 3,900, which is the number of Saturdays the average person has in a lifetime. It took me 55 years to think about this in any detail." He continued, "And by that time, I had lived through 2,800 Saturdays. I got to thinking that if I lived to be 75, I only had about 1,000 of those left to enjoy. So according to this guy's math, you and I have 3,900 weekends in our lifetime. And by the time that sank in for him, by the time it clicked, he was already 55 years old. He realized he had already spent 2,800 of those weekends. So according to his math and his arithmetic, he had about 1,000 of those days or weekends left, 1,000 weeks left. So then he told the young man how he went out and purchased 1,000 marbles and put them in a clear container in a visible place at home. And this is what he said. Every Saturday since then, I have taken out one of the marbles out of the jar and thrown it away. I found that by watching the marbles diminish, I focused more on the really important things in life. There's nothing like watching your time here on earth run out to help you get your priorities straight. Now listen to that again. There is nothing like watching your time here on this earth run out to help you get your priorities straight. So, here is this man's 1,000 marbles. If you're wondering what these were on stage, this is it. This is what 1,000 marbles looks like. He realized he had 1,000 of them left, and so what he would do is every week go into his jar, take one of the marbles, throwing it away. That was representative of that week that had just passed. The time that was gone that he would never, ever see again. And surely, but slowly, over time, his jar became more and more empty, representing the time that has passed. Just like the jar of marbles being empty, his time was running out. So how powerful would a visual like this be for you? Where you could see the days and weeks you have left on this earth dwindle away. I mean, when I saw that, I just could not imagine what it would be like to have a visual like this in my house. It would change things for me. And so the advice that the older man is giving to the younger man is that when you see how much time you have left, it changes your perspective on the time you've got now. When you see how much time you have left, it adds value to the time that you have now. When you see how much time you have left, you tend to be more strategic and intentional with it. Things change when you see the number of your marbles dwindle. Perspective changes when you lose your marbles. Another man that I look up to named Reggie Joyner, he says it this way. Visualizing time may help you pace yourself, narrow your focus, guard your margin, value quality interaction, and become more intentional about what you do have. There is something powerful in being able to see how much time is left. The ability to see how much time you have left is a game changer, quite literally. Guys, think about it. You're watching your favorite sports team play. Score is within a couple of points. 10 seconds left in the game to go. That game changes, doesn't it? The attitude of the players changed. They have this new burst of energy and adrenaline rushing. They're playing with a whole new passion. They are focused on those 10 seconds. And it's not just true of the players. For those of us watching the game, we are at the edge of our seat, just anticipating everything. And all of a sudden, our talking becomes shouting, becomes yelling, and we just start getting louder and louder, and we are just locked in. There is nothing breaking our focus from that TV set. Isn't that right, wives? The truth is, when you see how much time you have left, it changes the way you view it. It changes the way you view everything. Things change when you see the clock get closer and closer to zero. And that's exactly what Moses is teaching the Israelites. When you count your days begin to count. We are more focused. We live with urgency. We live with meaning. To use a line from the game of marbles, you begin to play for keeps. Now, I know some of you may say, Matt, that sounds great. That's awesome, but I'm stuck at this dead-end job. I didn't choose to be here. I never wanted to be here, but I'm kind of trapped. I would love to leave, but I can't because I can't afford to leave here. And honestly, there is nothing meaningful that I can do where I am here today. And here's what would happen. You would say that to me, and I would listen and try to process everything you just said. And then I would ask you this simple question. Are you sure? I would ask you to start thinking about the faces of the people you work with, the people in your office. I would ask you to start thinking about your boss. I would ask you to start thinking about your customers. I would start asking you to think about the things you are doing and the way you're doing them. Because I believe you can make a difference where you are right now. Now, quite honestly, I didn't always believe that. I honestly did think there were certain jobs that just meaningless. But I'll tell you, something changed in me. And it's just kind of weird how it all happened. Because just last week, and it's a God thing, because I had this message planned, I had the verse picked out, everything ready to go, and then I was randomly watching the news. I don't watch the news. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But we were watching ABC World News with Diane Sawyer. And we're just going through the channels, and I just quickly saw, coming up after the commercial break, an interesting segment on window washing. I was like, what? Window washing? That's exciting. I'm going to tune in for this, but for some reason I did. And that was my thought beforehand. Like, window washing, what is important about window washing? But my mind and perspective quickly changed after I saw that segment. And so I want you guys to watch it real quick.
Across America today, a lot of children could look out the window and see, is it a bird, a plane, or a window washer flying by just for them? It is proof that everyone has a superpower, even if it's just giving someone a brighter day. Here's ABC's John Donvan.
The kids who are stuck inside, the windows that have to get cleaned, it was a natural, once somebody thought of it, to put the window cleaners in costumes. Give the kids a show.
Batman and Spider-Man and Captain America.
Give the kids a laugh. Give them a thrill. So yeah, somebody thought of it here at C.S. Mott's Children's Hospital in Michigan over the weekend. But guess what? They also thought of it back in May at St. Francis in Tulsa. And in Pittsburgh in April, Children's Hospital. And in Akron in March. Look how excited that kid is. And the guys swinging around out there, real window washers.
It's another day at the office.
Getting to dress up for a day, a long-time wish for this guy.
I've been wanting to do this for so long. It's like I said, it's a fulfilling thing here. I'm happy.
So it's a trend, or super trend, which started actually in Britain. Although for Superman, these other guys, it's truth, justice, and the American way.
I waved and I smiled.
And then what did they do?
They waved and they smiled back.
And if you think you see ropes holding these guys up, you're looking at it the wrong way. John Donvan, ABC News, Washington.
After I saw that, I kind of sat in awe, and I may have had a tear building up in the corner of my eye, but something just got in my eyes. And I just think it's proof that all of us, even window washers, can make a difference. It's just all about your approach. It's all about your mindset. It's all about your goals. So again, I would ask you, what can you do? Because I believe we're all capable of living with that kind of purpose and meaning. We just have to live with the end in mind. Because when you count your days begin to count. So how can you, where you are right now, begin playing for keeps? So I kind of want to change gears here and talk about the next generation for a moment, because that's my passion. I want to talk about the little ones. And here's something I know about you. Every single one of you. And you didn't know that I know this about you till right now. But you are here right now because some adult cared about you enough in your life to be present for you. Someone invested in you. Someone invested the marbles they had left in you. That might have been a teacher, might have been a coach, might have been a Sunday school teacher, could have been a friend, could have been a family member, could have been your parents. I don't know who it was for you, but I do know there was someone. So my question for you would be, who is that little person you can invest in? Who is that one person you can be present for? Who is that little one that you can share your marbles with? Because that's what we're talking about here. Legacies are about leveraging the time you have left to make an impact that goes beyond you. It's about making your time count. And so for this weekend, for me, it's just kind of bizarre. It's kind of weird. Because on one hand, we're celebrating these high school graduates, and it's such an exciting time and talking about all their achievements and their accomplishments. But on the other hand, my wife is literally about to give birth to our third child any second. All right? I could get the call and I'm gone, and we'll figure out how to finish this out. So for me, this weekend is both ends of the time spectrum. Both ends of the time continuum. We're going from cribs to college, teething to tattoos. And this weekend for me is it's a reminder that time goes by so quickly. Kids are born and they will grow up. And so we only have a little bit of time. And the questions I started asking myself is, what if we could take Moses' advice and apply it to parenting? Grandparents, adults, maybe you're in a season of life where you don't have a young one around you all the time. Maybe yours is grown up. But what if we could number our days and gain wisdom in regards to impacting the next generation, gaining a new perspective and leaving a legacy? So here's what I want to do. I want to take a few moments here. This is a very dangerous thing because I'm Polish. Now, I don't do well at math. Now, I've been told that the Polacks are really good at math. They broke the Enigma code, World War II, that thing. I didn't know about that, so that kind of just crushed me a little bit last night. But I personally am not good at math. Half the time I'm wearing a calculator watch. But I want to do some arithmetic for you of my own. Because I believe that if we can do this, we'll get a strong visual of how much time we have. And now I want to give you this understanding going into how I did and why I did it the way I did it. I believe that the greatest opportunity for us to influence the life of a person is between the time they are born and the time they turn 18. I believe we can have the greatest impact in the life of a young one before they graduate high school. So, with that in mind, I did a little math. You may have a newborn, and if you do, a child just born. So my son Anderson, who's going to be born any minute now, this is the jar I'm living in. This is 936 marbles. You take 18 years, times that by 52, you have 936. So I have 936 weeks to influence the life of my soon-to-be son. Now, I look at this jar, and if I'm being honest with you, I'm thinking, man, that's a lot of time. That is a lot of marbles right there. But see, here's where it gets a little crazy. It gets a little saddening, a little eye-opening for me, is then I move to this next jar. This is just 5 years later. So if you have a 5-year-old, and this hits home for me again because my oldest son Landon turns 5 in July. You take 13 years, because you minus 5 from 18, right? 13. I'm just saying this out loud to make sure that I'm right. You times that by 52 weeks. That gives you 676 weeks before your 5-year-old turns into an 18-year-old who leaves home. You go to 10, you have 416 marbles. Then you get to 15 years old, not only do you have one of those crazy teenagers, you have 156 weeks. 156 weekends. 156 Saturdays to influence them before they leave home for school, before they turn 18. And so what I hope you see here is that time flies by. It may seem like you've got an eternity, but at some point, your marbles run out. You lose your marbles. In regards to children, that means several different things. But the time we have is short. The time we have is precious. And what I hope you see is that time flies by. That's why it's important for us to count our days so that our days begin to count. That's why Moses' instruction is to number our days. The point in all of that is that each week becomes more crucial when you see it in the context of how much time you have left. So I want to point you guys to one more valuable resource. It's a resource you can download for free in iTunes. So you can go home and download it. It's called the Legacy Countdown app by the Rethink Group. Their goal is to help us visualize time because they believe when you see how much time you have left, you tend to do more with the time you have now. Or in other words, when you count your days begin to count. So there are a couple of different ways to use this app, and I want to show you. The first use is if you have a child. You open up the app, type in their name, type in their birthday, and it will tell you exactly, to the moment, how much estimated time before they turn 18 or graduate high school. So, for my son Landon, I have 619 marbles. That's 3,744,20,241 seconds. My daughter Chandler, 723 marbles. And when I saw this, it was kind of, because it sounds like a lot, but when you start putting numbers to it, it changes everything. So here's what I want to do. Any of you guys have a middle school student? All right, what's their name? Elizabeth. E-L-I-Z. I was not good at math, but I can spell like a champ. All right, and what's her birthday? 5/30/2000. 2000. So it's this simple. You put it in, submit, and you have, with Elizabeth, 202 weekends. 202 Saturdays left. See, something changes when you number your days. Now, for you, maybe you are in a different season of life again. Maybe you are at a point where your kids have grown up, they've moved out, or maybe you don't have kids yet, but there are other milestones coming up that you are counting down to. Maybe for you, it's a trip or an event. Maybe it's a family get-together. Maybe it's retirement. So I played that what-if scenario, and I said, you know what, I want to retire when I turn 60. Wishful thinking, I know. So I did the math. I said, all right, I'll give it the end of the year. So December 31st, 2044. That means I have 1,647 marbles before that day. Something changes when you see how much time you have left. So if you don't have the desire to go home or leave here and buy tons of marbles, you can download this app for free because I encourage you all to count your days so that your days may begin to count. And I know that some of you in here, when we're talking about this, you're thinking, I've not used my time well. I've squandered my time. I've wasted it. I've not done anything. Well, listen. Listen. It's not too late. You can make your days begin to count right now. You still have time. We see this in the New Testament. We're introduced to a guy named Peter. Peter was personally chosen by Jesus to follow him. Then not too long after that, which, that would be a great high moment in his life. Then after that, Peter tries that whole walk on water thing, right? And what happens? He does for a second, loses focus, loses faith, and he sinks. And then not too long after that, Peter is rebuked by Jesus. Jesus says, Satan, get behind me, to Peter. Now, I'm going out on a limb here. But I think that if the Son of God were to call you Satan, it's not a good thing. And then there was that whole deal where Peter denies knowing who Jesus even is 3 times. And then takes out his sword to slice the guy's head off. So you want to go from hero to zero. Peter knows what that's like. But we have this wonderful story, this wonderful event that takes place where Jesus resurrects from the grave. You guys know that part? Where Jesus rises from the dead? And then a couple days later, he goes to the beach. Who wouldn't want to go to the beach after that? And he sees the disciples, and he pulls Peter aside and says, listen, Peter, I'm not done with you yet. I still have a mission for you. I have a purpose for you. Listen, I've got a way in mind for you to spend your final days. I'm giving you a second chance. And that truth for Peter is the same truth for us. But listen to what Peter writes. So if there's anybody who knows how to take advantage of a second chance, it's Peter. And this is what Peter writes in his book, 1 Peter, starting in chapter 1, verse 3. Now this is the Message paraphrase, so feel free to read it on the screens. Because Jesus was raised from the dead, we have been given a brand new life and everything to live for, including a future in heaven. But the future starts now. Which I love because you can sense the urgency in Peter's writing. He says, listen, I know you think you've messed up, but so did I. I know that you need a fresh start, so did I, but Jesus' resurrection changed everything for me, just like it changed things for you. Now listen, I know you're losing your marbles. Time is flying by fast. But you need to start playing for keeps. And you can do that because Jesus gives us a new beginning. He resets the clock. But you've got to start now. You have got to go now. You have got to begin now. And so that's kind of my hope today, is that none of us would waste time. Because time is precious. My hope is that we would make most of the time we have left. And I honestly believe that God has a purpose and a plan for all of us. We can make all the difference in this life and the life of other people, but we need to get a move on it because time does fly. It goes by so quickly. So graduates, you're entering this new chapter of life, and it's going to be exciting. You're going to learn some useful new things. Listen, stuff you can actually use as an adult. But I want to remind you, you're not invincible. You will die. It's the circle of life. From dust you were created, to dust you will return. James says, yeah, you know, you're young, but your life is a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. So graduates, count your days so that your days begin to count. Then journey. I believe there is no limit to what we can do. There is no limit to how much we could change the world. I have seen the things you guys have done over the last couple of years, and I've been floored by it. And I've been part of this church for a long time. There is no limit to what we can do. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter where you've been. It doesn't matter how bad you think you've blown it as a parent or in life in general. And I like what Pastor Rick Warren says. He says, Jesus is in the business of giving people a fresh start. We need not to take this fresh start for granted. We need to make it count starting now. And so I don't want to overwhelm you with that. Because I know, I want every day to count for the rest of your life. That's kind of an overwhelming goal. So I want you to start with just this week. As you leave these doors, I want you to start thinking about the people you work with. Who can you encourage on who's having a bad day? Who can you pray for who needs it? Who can you speak truth in love with that needs to hear it? Who can you share what you believe with? How about you go home this week, turn off your cell phone so you can strategically and intentionally spend time with your child or spouse? I honestly believe you can make this week count. And so to help you with that, on your way out, I've got a little gift for you. On your way out, I'm going to give you a marble. That marble represents this week. And my hope is that it would be a reminder of today. It would be a reminder of the principle that when you count your days begin to count. And that you would see that marble or feel it in your pocket, or every time you stick your hand in your purse and you're digging around for something, you feel that marble. And it's a reminder that this week needs to count. And now my hope is that it would become a lifelong thing. I believe that, I hope it would become a natural part of your rhythm of what you do every single day. But for this week, make it count. Father, we just thank you for how great and good you are. We thank you for your son, Jesus, who is a game changer for all of us, who gives us a fresh start and a new perspective on the time we have. And Lord, my prayer is that we as a body of believers would begin to count our days so that our days begin to count. There is no limit to what we can accomplish if we make it, if we're very intentional with how we'll spend the days we have left. So, Father, I pray that you would empower us, guide us, and for some of us, convict us of what we can be doing and what we should be doing. And then I pray you'd give us the strength and power to do that. Father, we love you. We are so thankful for your love and grace that you give us every single day. And we pray this in the beautiful name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.